What's up, y'all? Welcome to Tabletop Bros. This is week 2 of a 2,000 point Warhammer 40,000 Escalation League. My faction is Space Marines, my chapter is Deathwatch. Each week be paying up 250 points. The league is 8 weeks long, and at the end we have a 2,000 point army, fully painted and ready for big 40k. We're going to mix it up this week, and I'm going to be showing you my addition and current army first, and then I'll recap my game as we paint. My first new addition is my captain with jump pack. He's rocking a Thunderhammer, Relic shield, and he has the Thief of Secrets Deathwatch enhancement. Next is a lieutenant in Phobos armor, and he's leading a squad of 5 Reivers. This comes out to 240 points and puts my army up to 485 points total. If you didn't watch week 1 yet, go back and check it out. But just to recap, we started off with 5 Assault Intercessors with jump packs and a Gladiator Lancer. Last week's games were short and sweet at only 250 points against Tyranids. I was a load of fun and I was able to get the W's. I love the mobility of the assault squad, but the Lancer did the heavy lifting. It was picking up Gene Stealers left and right and killed the Broodlord with Tank Shock in the first game and again in the second game with Overwatch. Both my plasma pistols on the assault squad overcharged and shot the Lictor, missing only to roll double ones on my hazardous test, killing themselves. But I did learn that command re-roll could have saved one. So that's it for the recap. Let's do some edge highlighting on El Capitan while I tell you about week 2's game. So I magnetized the jump pack for my captain conversion. I used the same airbrush techniques and colors as before, and now I'm going to edge highlight him so he stands out on the table. The key to edge highlighting is to do a little less with each color. Start off with 100% of the edges in Techless Blue, then each color that follows we do a little bit less. 75%, 50%, 25%, and we're done. So while we lay down that Techless Blue, let's talk about how my week 2 war went against Deathwing Terminators, led by Belial. So my opponent took 2 squads of 5 Terminators, led by Belial, the master of the Deathwing. I was definitely a bit intimidated. The terrain was dense, with 3 total objectives, 1 in each deployment zone, and a 3rd in the center of the table. Scoring was 2 points per objective, 2 points per kill, and special points for calling your shot. The mission rule was to lock down your Warhammer math, and award bonus points for getting close or exactly the damage you predicted. So each time a unit shot or fought, you would declare your estimated damage in advance. If you did within 2 wounds of your estimate, you scored 2 bonus points. If you were exact, you scored 3. But our game was bloody, really bloody. So calling your shot was far less important. By the end of turn 3, only one side remained. It all started with deployment. I went first and put the Gladiator in the back corner to screen out Deep Strike, with a nice line on the center objective. He deployed Belial leading 5 Terminators on his home objective, then my assault squad and captain started on my home objective. His other unit of Terminators were in Deep Strike, as well as my lieutenant and his Reivers. Although I knew they wouldn't do much against all that Terminator armor, I figured keeping them in Deep Strike might give me a strategic advantage. So he won the first turn, but couldn't see or do much. On my turn, I chose Brigadist tactics, with hopes to assassinate Belial. I declared oath on Belial's Terminator unit, then the captain and assault squad advanced onto the center objective, abandoning my home objective to secure board control. I then moved up with the Gladiator Lancer and got into firing position. I knew my back line was now exposed, but wanted to do some early damage with hope to put him on the back foot. I unleashed the Lancer Laser Destroyer against Belial's squad. I used Oath of Moment to reroll my miss and scored a regular and critical hit. The plan was working. Brigadist tactics. While this mission tactic is active each time an Adeptus Astartes unit from your army makes an attack, if a critical hit is scored, that attack has the precision ability. Both shots wounded, and because of precision, one was against the Grandmaster himself. Unfortunately, even a command reroll couldn't save my opponent. 1 Terminator died instantly, and Belial took 9 wounds himself. I was off to an early lead. So now that we've got all the edges done with Techless Blue, it's time to switch to Thunderhawk Blue and do some slightly smaller edge highlights, with aim to cover up about 75% of the edges. And don't mind my super janky brush, I found it on the side of the road. Besides, brush control is much more important than brush quality. Practicing basic techniques will help you much more than some fancy new trend or expensive new product. It's not just a saying, practice really does make perfect. So back to the game. It was Deathwing turn 2, and with Belial's corpse still smoking, I knew I was in for some return fire. He scored his home objective, tying the score, and dropped his Terminators on the center objective. Using a new Dark Angel stratagem, he was able to drop 3 inches away from my jump captain and his assault marines, contesting the center objective. This meant I would likely score 0 on turn 2, since I had recklessly abandoned my own objective and no longer held the center. My captain and assault squad were his oath targets, and he unleashed a load of Terminator salvos. And when the dust cleared, only 2 of my assault squad had fallen. Part of the stipulation for deep striking 3 inches away with his stratagem is that he couldn't charge that turn, so it was now my turn too. We're also going to be moving on to the Fenrisian Grey, so we did 100% of the edges with Techless Blue, then 75% with Thunderhawk Blue, and now we're doing 50% with Fenrisian Grey. We're also going for a much sharper highlight. So at the beginning of turn 2, I declared Führer Tactics to gain Exploding Sixes. Oath of Moment went on his central Terminators, and I moved the Gladiator back to my home objective. I no longer had threat of him deep striking in my back lines. The Gladiator was able to secure my objective, and still gain sight on the Oath Terminators in the center. I dropped the Reivers in to support the Captain and what remained of my assault squad. I used a grenade stratagem, and he used his Watcher in the dark. When the explosion stopped and the smoke cleared, the Watcher had saved a Terminator. I fired off the Reivers pistols, overcharged my plasma pistols, and the Gladiator unleashed hell. By the time my shooting phase was done, only 1 Terminator remained, and he was wounded. So I charged in with the assault squad and Captain. I rolled well with my Hammer of Wrath, and actually managed to kill off the last of the Terminators in the center. Hammer of Wrath. Each time this unit ends a charge move, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of it, and roll 1d6 for each model in that unit that is within engagement range of that enemy unit. For each 4+, the enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So while it is good that I was able to kill off the central Terminators, I was hoping to do it in combat with the Captain and power up his Thief of Secrets enhancement, which already had given him +1 strength, damage, and armor penetration on his Thunderhammer, but has a secondary ability if an enemy model is destroyed as a result of a melee attack by the bearer at the end of that phase until the end of the battle, improve the strength, damage, and armor penetration characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons by 2 instead. So as you can see, we went through and hit the corners with a dab of White Scar. That'll wrap it up for the armor and highlighting, and going into turn 3, although the score was still close, the Deathwatch were pulling away with the lead. The remaining 4 Terminators unleashed a volley of bolt fire and missiles, all but eliminating the assault squad. Only the Sergeant and Captain remained. But with a full unit of Reivers securing the center, the Gladiator on my home objective, and a failed charge by the Terminators, it wasn't looking good for the Deathwing. My turn 3, I moved up with the Captain, Sergeant, and Reivers, used the grenade strat again. The Watcher kept them from damage, but the plasma pistol finished off a Terminator. Leaving only 3 Deathwing on the board, my opponent went all in on stratagems, spending his last 3 command points. The Captain scored 2 devastating wounds though, and at 3 damage apiece, it was up to the Sergeant to finish the fight, which he did, but the remaining Terminators fought on death and felled the Deathwatch Captain. Once again, the Deathwatch had secured the win, but the Captain had paid the ultimate price. This week was a load of fun, and had it not been for the epic assassination plan coming to fruition on the first turn, who knows how the game would have went. Surely Belial, master of the Deathwing, would have changed the outcome. Once again, the Gladiator had proven to be worth its weight in gold. I've already got big plans for next week, but would love to add a second one. The sooner the better. If you enjoyed today's painting video, or want to find out how the Escalation League progresses, hopefully by now we've earned your subscription. But in the meantime, that's it from the Tabletop Bros. Later!